Hello, welcome to my channel, Edible Thoughts Makes. My name is Stephanie, and this channel is where I share with you my works in progress, finished projects, things I'm cooking up, books I'm reading, funny things my kids may say. My hope is that as you watch this episode and the previous episodes, that you find some inspiration along the way. This is episode 137. It is the late middle part of December, year 2024. I actually don't remember what day, like number day it is, but it is almost Christmas. And I can hardly believe it. This year has flown by so fast, but this month particularly has gone by really quickly. I feel like every day I blink and then the day's over, and I'm checking my to-do list and seeing if I got anything done, which fortunately I have gotten things done, but never quite as much as I want to. And so things just kind of roll over to the next day, but it's okay. Things are getting done. Everything is just fine. We'll get there. The calendar days will keep going whether or not I finish my list, and that's okay is what I'm trying to say. Last week we had some really cold weather. The wind chill made it to be, I think, colder than -10 Fahrenheit, which is the cutoff for our schools for the kids to not go outside for recess. Otherwise, they bundle up and they go. Something that's pretty cool is that we have this section in the school that has donated like snow pants and winter gear, hats, mittens, boots, all of the things in different sizes. And so if kids don't have something at home or forgot something, they can borrow it for recess for the day and just hang it back up when they are finished. And I love that. So kids should have what they need to go outside, regardless of the weather, unless it is just way too cold, and then they have indoor recess. I have to say though, the weather hasn't been consistent, and so I feel like we're putting in the snow pants, taking out the snow pants, putting in the snow pants, taking out the snow pants out of the backpack like every other day. We haven't had consistent snow, and so the snow pants aren't always necessary. I mean, you should wear them if it's really, really cold, but if it's like hovering around 30s Fahrenheit, we don't always feel the need for the snow pants. But anyway, that's where we're at with that. It has been about 2 weeks since we last sat down and chatted. I have made a ton of things. Some things have already been gifted, and so I won't have them to share here. Some of the things I think I talked about previously. Other things, I'm kind of looking at my pile here. Other things I have finished previously, but just didn't talk about last time, or I was close to finishing, but didn't talk about last time, because sometimes they're just kind of all over the place, and I feel like my brain is a little bit all over the place, so we'll see what we get to today. I'm thinking that maybe we'll just do finished projects, and works in progress will just kind of roll into next year, because this is probably my last episode for 2024, and then we'll just kind of see what we get to. I do not do the videos where people kind of recap everything they made in the year. I feel like that would just be really tedious for me to do, and so I don't do that. I just wanted to say that so that you don't have the expectation that there's going to be a video like that if you are new here. If you have been here for some time, you'll know that I never do them. I have been recording since November 2019, and I can hardly believe that it has been 5 years and I'm still here. If you hear a little bit of creaking, it's the little stool, chair, bench thing that I am sitting on. I feel like it's better for my back to sit on a chair than to sit on the floor. I sat on the floor last time, and I usually end up just sitting on the floor, but I just end up like hunched over within a few minutes or like by the end of the episode, and it just isn't very comfortable. So I feel like if I sit on like an actual chair or bench, I sit up straighter and it's just much more comfortable. So that's what I'm doing. I'm going to try not to move too much. If you've been here for some time, you know I also talk with my hands a lot, so I'm going to try not to make anyone motion sick by moving my arms around all over the place, but also just to not jiggle this creaky chair bench thing too much. But yeah, so apologies in advance if there's a lot of weird creaking sounds going on. If you are new here, the way I usually organize my videos is I have an intro welcome section, and then finished projects, works in progress, eats and reads, where I share things that I may have cooked or baked recently, and books that I have finished or am currently reading. And then there's a food for thought section that sometimes has a question or quote unquote homework assignment for you, which is completely just like a brain, or I was gonna say a brain exercise, but sometimes there's an action involved. But anyway, it's definitely not mandatory. Anything is just for fun for you to think about. I do use Ravelry for all of my projects that are crocheted and knit, and that is listed in the description box below this video, along with all the makers, dyers, designers, things like that that I talk about. I try to just link to their website, that way you can just find all of their information there with like social medias, patterns, and things like that. I include closed captioning for all of my videos. Apologies for the delay on the previous video. For whatever reason, YouTube took several days to get the automatic captions up for me to edit. Usually it just takes a couple of hours or so, so I'm not sure what happened. I know that video was longer than an hour, so maybe that was part of it, but I felt like the sound quality was okay, which when I was searching for reasons on why it may take longer, they say sometimes it's sound quality or a lot of people talking over each other at the same time, or there's just a lot of other reasons, but I felt like none of the reasons listed were things that were at fault on my end, so I'm not sure what happened. Hopefully this one will go up sooner. I do like to have those up when I publish the video, and so last time I was hoping that by publishing it, it would kind of jumpstart whatever loop it was stuck in to get those captions up. And I don't know if that actually did it, but then they were up, I think, within another 24 hours. I'm not entirely sure, but anyway, I'm hoping this one will go quicker. I'm also hoping this video will be less than an hour, so maybe that will make it easier for the captions to be up. I don't know. So again, apologies for that. If I speak faster or slower than your preferences, YouTube allows you to adjust the speed, and I believe that's all of that kind of stuff to talk about. So let's get into finished projects. The first finished project I want to share with you today is the one that I'm wearing and the one that I am not wearing, but it is the same pattern. Tori Yu recently released the Avenue Vest pattern, and it comes in a V-neck view and a crew neck view. It is knit top down at a worsted weight gauge of 18 stitches by 24 rows. The top part is knit flat, and then you join in the round to knit the body. And I believe the body length is pretty much full length, but that's something you can easily adjust to be shorter or longer for your own preferences. And the recommended ease is 4 to 6 inches of positive ease. I picked the second size for the upper range of positive ease, and I really like how it turned out. I knit 2 of them. The one I'm wearing is my second one. I'm going to show you the first one first and then talk about the second one as well. I picked up my yarn from Michael's, which is a big box craft store here in the United States, and I picked up Patons or Patons. I'm not sure which way you say it. There's no Y, so I'm not entirely sure. I want to say Patons, but maybe you know how you're supposed to pronounce it. It is classic wool worsted. It comes in 194 yards for 100 grams. It is a non-super wash wool, and this colorway is Natural Mix. Yeah, Natural Mix. And I purchased 300 grams, so 3 separate skeins of it for $11.22 United States dollars. Why did I just say that? That sounded really weird. I feel like usually you just say USD. I'm not sure why I said the whole thing out. Maybe it was like that in my brain. Anyway, so a great deal for a vest, and I had enough to also knit a swatch. So my garment ended up using 236 grams total, so I have a little bit remaining, and I was within the estimated amount listed in the pattern. I don't remember what her percentage for like a little bit of leeway is in there, but I was within the amount of yardage that was estimated for this size. So here it is. I wanted a very neutral one that I could really wear with anything, and this is a very warm gray. It leans a little more taupey colored, but it's definitely a gray. It just leans a little warmer gray, and it's heathered, and it's very soft. I will say that when I was knitting with the yarn, I didn't find it to be super soft. I found it actually a little bit scratchy, but also in the winter, my skin gets really, really dry, and so I felt like it was kind of like Velcroing to the yarn, and I definitely had to use hand cream or hand balm when I was working with it, but then it softened up a lot. After I washed it, I soaked it with Tuft Woolens, which is the bar soap that I usually prefer using to wash my wool items, and it softened up quite a bit. I don't know if it is something that will easily pill or not because I haven't had it for that long. I have worn it quite a bit. However, there aren't really any high friction areas because the armhole is also really deep. It isn't like you're going to get a lot of pilling in the armpit area because that fabric isn't up that high. So given that there's not a lot of points of high friction. I don't imagine that it's going to pill a lot. I guess if I wore like a crossbody purse, then I could test that out. I really like it. I think it's something that is so easy to throw on over anything, especially like a button-up shirt. It just adds a little bit of extra warmth in that core section, and I don't know, I think it looks really nice. So a little bit more about the construction. You knit the back section first. It can essentially act as your swatch, but I still knit a swatch because I just wanted to make sure that this was a good yarn choice. I may have used it before, but I've definitely not used it in any sort of garment. So you knit the back section first, and then I blocked mine because again, I was using it as a swatch and I just wanted to make sure that it was gonna be okay. And then I picked up for each of the left and front sides as written in the pattern. And then once you get to this bottom shaping section complete, then you join in the round and you knit the body, and then you go back and do the ribbing sections for the armhole and the neck. I like how this ribbing is finished off. I think it adds a nice detail. And I knit this one completely to pattern. I didn't change anything about it. I feel like looking at other people's pictures, mine looks a little bit bigger on me, but I don't know if it's because I chose a size that was on the higher end of the positive ease range than lower, and so it just looks a little bit longer, or if this yarn bloomed a lot. I could check the gauge again, and it ended up slightly bigger, but in any case, I really like how it turned out. Tori said there was some feedback about the armhole being a little bit too deep for some people's preferences, so she had made an adjustment in the pattern. I had finished mine before she made that adjustment, so I'm not sure how that changes things. I haven't compared the schematics between the two patterns yet, so I'm not sure how different it is, but both of these versions that I knit up were prior to that revision. I do have yarn set aside for a third one, and I guess maybe I'll follow the pattern or the revised pattern for that one. But I do like the deeper armholes because I feel like when I'm layering, I don't have to be concerned about how deep my sleeve, no, that's not right, how deep my, can't think of the word right now, but I don't have to be concerned with whether or not it's going to fit, like the vest is going to fit over it without some weird fabric bunching in the armpit area. I just feel like it's very light, it's very loose and breathable and has space to move, and it's great. I love it. So yes, I've worn this gray one a lot. One of my favorite parts of it is this back shoulder detail where the join is. I feel like I've gotten very tidy with how I pick up my stitches, and it just looks really nice. It's very simple in the detail, and I just think it just adds a little bit of something. So that's probably one of my favorite parts of this. And yeah, that is the gray one. And then I thought, okay, while I was knitting the gray one, I thought, okay, I would really love to knit a marled one. And at an 18 stitch gauge, there really is a lot of leeway to do lots of different things. You could do DK held with mohair, you could do a fingering weight held with suri, because I feel like suri alpaca lace weight is a heavier lace weight and much floofier. So if you wanted to pair that with a fingering weight, you could still fill in the gaps without it being too gapey. And I decided to hold Purl Soho's linen quill double, and I've knit with this yarn multiple times. If you've been here before, you'll have seen many garments knit with this yarn. And so I knew my gauge, so I didn't do another gauge swatch, and I just went with it. I pulled together a palette of colors that I thought would be super fun and bright, and I will put that picture here on the screen so you can see what I was working with. And then I knew that I wanted a base color that was a navy. So my base color is dark denim. This yarn is 439 yards for 100 grams. It is 50% fine Highland wool, 35% alpaca, 15% linen. I'm going to get a little bit closer so you can hopefully see the heathering. The linen doesn't take up dye the same way the animal fibers do, and so you get this really nice heathering that shows through on the darker colors. And so I wanted to hold that throughout, but for the ribbing, I held it double with itself. And then the rest of the time, I marled in different colors. Just whenever I felt like changing it up, I would change it up. And I love how it turned out. I did add little blips of brighter colors in different sections just to break it up a little bit, and that I just did afterwards when I thought, okay, well, this part is a little more neutral than I wanted, so then I would add in a little blip of neon, or on the sides. I think here I have a little bit of this poppy red color. I just wanted a little blip there. There's this more like tennis ball green color up here. I have this bright flamingo neon coral color over here. And yeah, it was just so much fun to knit up. I did knit this one inch shorter than the other one. It still goes past my hip bone, so I think it's still probably a full length size. I didn't make any other modifications other than length, and of course my fabric changed up everything a little bit, but not in terms of like following the pattern. I just changed the fabric of it, and I love how it turned out. I probably used like 15 different colors in here. This came out to be 203 grams, so almost 900 yards of yarn. And again, that's fingering weight held double. It's a very nice, light, airy, drapey fabric. I love the colors. This one is perfect to go over denim shirts. I feel like the blue complements it really well and acts as more of a grounding base to wear underneath this, but I can wear this over really any color. I would probably keep the underlayer to be a solid. I feel like I could possibly get away with a plaid, but it might just be too much visual dissonance to have that much patterning and color going on. But I've so far worn it just over like a solid or a heathered shirt or maybe like a solid turtleneck, but definitely this blue denim is something that I gravitate towards. Whereas the other one being a solid heathered warm gray color, I can wear that easily over plaid or anything else that has patterning with it. And then on the bottom, I would wear jeans, corduroys, really anything else that's solid would work. I haven't tried the vests with any skirts or dresses yet. I feel like because they're longer, unless I belt it and kind of do a tuck, the proportions would just look off. So I feel like with pants and like a shirt underneath that's either a button up or a thin long sleeve or a turtleneck, that's a pretty good pairing for me. The next finished project I'd like to share with you is my 11-year-old's birthday hat. Her birthday isn't in December, but as I mentioned in the previous episode, that I gift knit year round for my family, and if I don't have them constantly going, then I'll just never finish anything. And so I go with what I feel like making, and this is something that I have knit again and again, and it's something that's so easy for me to pick up and put down. This hat, the Musselburgh hat by Isolde Teague, is essentially like a vanilla sock for me. It is something that I don't have to look down at. It is something I don't have to really pay attention to. And I like having one cast on and just put in the car, my purse, or my backpack so that I can knit on it when I have a chance. And I finished this one and I just love it. Now, if you're not familiar with this hat pattern, you may think this looks really weird. How are you supposed to put that on? But it is knit from end to end, or in my case, I don't do it that way. The pattern originally is made so that you knit one crown. So you do increases on one end, and then basically you use that as your swatch to measure how many stitches per inch, and then you get to the certain amount of stitches you're supposed to be at for your size, and then you knit this long tube, and then you knit another crown on the other side with decreases to match the first one. The way I like to do it is if I know my gauge and the needles that I want to use, I will cast on with a provisional cast on and then do the crowns the same. So both sides will be decreases. So then I just pick the stitch count for the size that I want with the gauge that I know I have, and I go that way. Now, it just depends on my mood, how I feel like doing it. I have done this enough times where I don't feel like the cast on is super fiddly, but this way also means my two crowns look exactly the same, which again doesn't really matter because it's going to be tucked in to each other, so you only see one at a time anyway. It is just based on my mood, how I feel like starting it, and that works for me. So the yarn I used here is all the Yarn Collective Fleurville 4-ply. It's 100% superwash merino. It is a little bit of a plumper fingering weight yarn that comes in, I think 382 yards for 100 grams. It is super, super soft. I've had this yarn for a long time. The colorways look more watercolory. So this bluish color is Delphinium. There is some variation in the light and darkness of it. This middle section, this mauve color is Hibiscus, and this bottom very light pink purpley color is Rose. I used 33 grams of the colors that are on both ends and 19 grams in the middle. Mine is knit much longer than the pattern states. This is the adult small, and I used a US 3 or 3.25 millimeter needle, and each crown used about 7 grams. And that's useful if you are figuring out how much yarn that you need to reserve for each side, or maybe you are just checking to see if you have enough yarn to knit it. So basically the crowns nest within each other, and one side has this look with the lighter color and then the mauve in the brim, and then when it's worn folded up with double layers over the ears, there will be a tiny bit pop of blue on the bottom and then mostly mauve, and then this lighter color for the top of the hat. And then worn on the reverse. I love that there are 2 looks to this, because then my daughter can decide which way she feels like wearing it that day. So then this way has the blue color as the mane, the mauve as the brim, and if she doesn't want to wear it slouchy and she wants the 4 layers, she can fold it up, and it will have the mauve as the brim with a teeny peak of the lighter color, depending on how high she folds it up. But this will be super soft and warm, and it should block the wind from getting into her ears. I feel like the winter wind blowing in my ears always gives me a headache. So I think this will be nice and warm and cozy, and I'm so excited to gift it to her. The next project I want to share with you, I'm not sure if it was actually finished last time or not, and I just forgot about it, but it is another hot water bottle cover, or as my 8-year-old likes to say, a hot water bottle sweater. And this is a free pattern by Emily Baudouin from Maker Maker. And the pattern uses DK weight, which means you can also marl fingering weight yarn and play with leftover bits of yarn that you have. This is a yarn I've had for a long time. I know it's a merino cashmere nylon base, and it is 400 yards for 100 grams. I held like a pink color together with another highly variegated yarn, and I love how it came out. I used 96 grams total. US 8 or 5 millimeter needles were used to do the bind off because I wanted to make sure that it was super stretchy. US 6 or 4 millimeter needle was used for the main fabric, and a US 4 or 3.5 millimeter needle was used for the ribbing. And I love how it turned out. I used a Turkish cast on instead of Judy's magic cast on for this bottom section. It is knit bottom up. It is a cast on I'm familiar with and I enjoy doing, so that's why I did it that way. I love that the pattern comes with 2 options. You can knit it flat and then seam, or knit it in the round, and I choose to knit it in the round. So I do the Turkish cast on magic loop, 40-inch cables, and then I do that until probably about 10 rounds in that I can comfortably switch over to 16-inch circulars. And then I do 16-inch circulars all the way until I get to this decrease section, or I suppose you could say it's the shoulder shaping on the hot water bottle cover. Then I switch back to magic loop, and then I do magic loop for this ribbing, or I suppose this could be the turtleneck. And then I use a double pointed needle to do the bind off in pattern and make sure it's super stretchy. Now, if you've never done this before, like fitting a hot water bottle into this kind of cover, just know that you do it without water in it. You fold it basically in thirds and you put it in, and it just kind of expands. I think I showed how to do it in a previous episode for a different one that I had made. And then you fill it with water. But yes, I love how this turned out. My daughter holds it to bed every night while she's reading in bed, and it is something that I'll tuck in while she's like brushing her teeth and getting ready for bed, so it warms up her bed. It can get really cold in the winter, and it's just so nice to be able to get into a bed that's like cozy and snuggly, and then she can hold on to it, or it can sit in her lap while she's reading before bed. It's just so nice. The next finished project I'd like to share with you are a pair of socks for my husband. Here they are. I think they were a work in progress last time. I'm not even sure if both heels were finished when we chatted last time. I think one heel was done. Well, no, maybe both heels were done and the other one was on the foot. I don't remember exactly, but here they are. If you have been watching this year, you will know that I am working on filling up his hand knit sock drawer. It is what I've been calling the 2024 Husband's Sock Drawer Project. And this is pair number 9. And I love how they turned out. This yarn is so much fun to knit up. I love self-patterning yarn. And it is the West Yorkshire Spinners Signature 4-ply self-striping yarn in their Country Birds collection. This is the colorway Pheasant. And I did knit them not identical. And then the heels are done in a Regia 4-ply. I believe the colorway is burgundy, but I don't know for sure. It's a reddish leaning purple. I used 7 grams for the heels and 66 grams total of the main color. I did not follow a specific pattern for this. I did cast on 64 stitches, and I did a knit 2 purl 2 ribbing for 25 rounds. Then I went through 2 color repeats. It was approximately 7 inches from the cast on edge. Then I did a slip stitch heel flap turn, and then cut the contrast yarn and picked up with the main color yarn to do the gusset and the remaining of the sock. I really like how these turned out. These are going to be wrapped up for Christmas, so I just wanted to share them real quickly here before they go under the tree. Next up, we have a gnome. This is also a gift for my husband. It will go in his Christmas stocking. This is Mr. Fezziwig. This is so cute and the perfect little Christmas gnome. This is a free pattern, Natty the Unexpected Gnome by Sarah of Imagined Landscapes. It uses a US 1 or 2.25 millimeter needle for the hat and the body, and then the beard and nose use a US 1.5 or 2.5 millimeter needle. In total, I used 93 yards of fingering weight yarn. All of this yarn is dyed by Michelle of Woolens and Nosh, and I have knit a pair of socks for my husband a couple of years ago in this yarn, and I love that I had enough to make a gnome. The hat used 5.63 grams, and it was the mini that came with the self-striping yarn. The body used 12.88 grams, and that I had used up like one full little bit and then another part of a little bit. I think I had to wind off a little to get to the right color sequence, but I had them in 2 little balls because I knit my socks 2 at a time. And yeah, I think it turned out really nice. And then the beard and the nose are from a different sock set. That one is a Corriedale sock, and I just kind of picked out the colors for it. The taupe, it was the mini, and then the nose is part of a stripe in the color, or a color in the stripe of the sock. And the beard used 2.66 grams, and the nose used 0.66 grams. So cute. So the stripe and the hat are in a Targhee sock base, and then the beard and the nose are in a Corriedale sock base. I think it's super cute and so round and plump and squishy. So cute. You know, these colors in the body remind me of those taffy candies that are kind of peppermint. They have a star or a tree. I think there's a tree in the middle, and they are these 3 colors. If you know what I'm talking about, comment below on that. But I remember, I think they're kind of like a taffy-ish candy. It comes in like a clear wrapping, and it's minty flavored, but the colors look like this. So cute. I love it. Next finished project is my 4th mini mock neck tank by Jessie Made Designs. This is one I don't think I showed last time, but I was still working on it, but I think I was almost finished, and I might have shown it 2 episodes ago. I don't really remember. Doesn't really matter. Here it is. I will not put it on today, but I'm sure you'll see it in a future episode. I did talk about how I will probably run out of the main color of yarn since I was using a sport weight yarn, and I definitely did run out, but it's fine because I used a different sport weight yarn to finish it off. This is yarn dyed by Lola Bean Yarn Co. It is 100% super wash merino. The colorway is The City So Nice, they named it twice. It came in 105 grams, and I used, I think, the whole thing. I had less than a gram left to make another round. And then on the bottom, I blended it in by doing these little like 1 round stripes, and then the other color, I blended in by doing 1 round first, and then 2 and 3 and 4, and then finished it off when I couldn't do another round of the main color. So the contrast color is Sweet Georgia Yarn Superwash Sport in the colorway Orchid, and it's this really bright magenta color, and I used 34 grams of that. The only modification I made was, well, definitely lengthening the body, and then I think I omitted a couple of rows in the front section just to try to bring in the armhole depth a little bit. Because I was using a sport weight yarn, I also just wanted to make sure that it wasn't going to make the armhole bigger versus using a fingering weight yarn. And then also being 100% superwash merino, it has a tendency to stretch out a little bit more, and it fits really well. I have full coverage, and it's super soft, and it's very drapey, and the speckles are really fun. I feel like the speckle distribution came out really nice. There aren't like huge blotches of any one color anywhere. And even though the top is knit flat and the bottom is knit in the round, I still feel like the color distribution came out pretty nice. I did skip the mock neck because I wasn't sure if I wanted to do it in this hot magenta color or just kind of leave it be for now. So I'm going to leave it be. If I feel like adding in the magenta color for the mini mock neck section, then I can always do that later because I do have more of that yarn. So I cast on the size S for myself, which gives me negative ease. I can't remember how much negative ease, but there's no ease at my natural waist. And then there ends up being negative ease again as it gets closer to my hips, but I feel like it's really comfortable. It is not too tight. And then for the ribbing on this one, I did not go down any needle sizes because I was making it longer. I wanted to make sure it would stretch where I needed it to stretch. So I did my ribbing still in the US 4 or 3.5 millimeter needle, which is what I used for the rest of the fabric. And then I did a tubular bind off for the bottom just to make sure it was extra stretchy. I used the Stephen West tutorial for it, which I'll link below, but I think someone commented that it wasn't actually a tubular bind off, that it was just a sewn bind off because there are no setup rows. I don't really know, but it works for me and I enjoy doing it, and so that is what I did. I don't think I have anything else to say about this one. I will probably wear it on a future episode underneath something else, and so you'll get to see it worn then. The last finished project I have to share with you are a quick sewing project. I have it on another work in progress, but basically what happened is I needed some needle cozies because I don't remember where they all went, but I think I was knitting some other things that required needle cozies on them because I was knitting magic loop. Oh, I know. I have a pair of fingerless mitts for my youngest, and those are on magic loop right now, and so I used the needle cozies for that. And then I feel like I had some other ones on something else. Anyway, long story long that did not need to be told, I decided I wanted to make some Christmassy ones, and I had some fabric available for it, and so here they are. I will link to the pattern that I use. It's a free one. It's really, really easy. You basically cut out 4 rectangles and you can use like quilter's batting or fusible fleece or whatever on the inside just to make it a little sturdier. And then I use the cam snap buttons, which is what the pattern uses as well. And I just love how it turned out. I did I don't know what kind of berries are on the outside, but there's like a little bit of cross hatching as well. And then I had some little bits of leftover green linen that I used for the inside. And then I decided to go with these light peachy pink snaps. I was going to use red, but I didn't have any. So the greens didn't really go, and I just decided I liked pink instead. So that's what I'm using. I think I dropped a double point. Okay, so the reason I have the double pointed needles in here is because when I knit socks, I often use a 9-inch circular. And then if I'm going to do a heel flap and gusset, I will switch to double pointed needles to do that heel flap section while the instep stitches are held on the 9-inch circulars. And then I will switch back to the 9-inch circulars when I get to the gusset portion. And then when I get to the toes, I switch to magic loop. I realize that is not the most cost-effective way to knit socks with 3 different types of needles, but I have the needles and it's what works for me, and so that's why I do it that way. You could knit the entire sock on magic loop. You could knit the entire sock on double pointed needles. You might even, well, I don't know if you could knit the entire sock on 9-inch circulars. I feel like you'd still have to switch to magic loop for the toes. Anyway, this is how I like to do it if I'm going to do a slip stitch heel flap, and so that's what I do. And that means I need the double pointed needles in a case, or not the needles, but like the project, I need it in a case so that everything doesn't just fall off. I think we are going to go into the works in progress just really quickly. I am not going to go into all the details if I can help myself. So first work in progress is from the last month of the 2024 Farmer's Daughter Fibers Sock Squad. It is the December colorway called Mother Magpie. It uses Highwood sock base, which is 400 yards for 100 grams. It is 80/20 superwash merino nylon. And this colorway is so moody and beautiful and has grays and blues. And I am knitting a pair of socks that don't use a particular pattern. This is what the yarn looks like in cake form. It has a lot of variation in it, but like a gentle wash. So I have the leg almost done on this one. Oh dear, I have the yarn tangled a little bit here. So for the cuff section, I cast on 64 stitches using an old Norwegian cast on, and I am doing a knit 1, purl 1 rib. So I did, I think, 5 rounds of the main color, then I did 5 rounds of this beautiful green contrast color, 5 rounds of the main, 5 rounds of the contrast, 5 rounds of the main, and then I switched to a knit 3 purl 1 for the leg. I'm doing 50 rounds of that before I start a slip stitch heel flap and gusset in the contrast color. This is what the contrast color looks like. It is a beautiful green. Oh dear, I'm stuck. Here we go. So I'll hold up the contrast color with the main color here so you can see them together. It's a beautiful jewel toned green. I feel like this is a more low contrast, but I love how they look together. It's got like a quiet feel to it, and I really like that. And so I have this sock that I just started the heel on, and that is why it was in a needle cozy. So these are all done on US 1 or 2.25 millimeter needles. My front stitches are held on the 9-inch circulars. And then I have my heel flap started on a double pointed needle. So those are safely tucked away into these cute little cozies. And I like that they also match my project bag. It's a patchwork project bag I made, I don't know if it was last year or a couple of years ago, but I really like it. It is so festive and fun and red, green, and cream. And then the back has these trees and cardinals. And then the drawstring has like a red calico fabric, and the inside, I believe, is just like an unbleached fabric. So I really like how this turned out. I don't use a pattern for my project bags. I just make them however way I feel like making them, and there is joy in that freedom of creativity for me. Oh, and I think I forgot to mention that that will be pair number 10 for my husband this year. I think it will be the last one. I was aiming for 12 this year, but I didn't have any like particular reason that it had to be 12. It just kind of worked out 12 months, 12 pairs of socks. But 10 pairs is great for him, and it almost doubles his sock drawer. He had 12 in there already, and so adding 10 more I think is pretty great. And who knows, maybe I will top it off with 2 more in January and February, but maybe it'll just take me all year to knit those next 2 pair of socks for him. I don't know, we'll see. I do have other yarn designated for his socks, and we'll see when I get to it. The next item I'm going to share with you is another hot water bottle cover, same pattern as the one that I mentioned previously. This one is for our 11-year-old, because if I make something for the 8-year-old, then I need to make something for the 11-year-old. This is yarn dyed by Colleen of Little Lionhead Knits. I believe it's a one-of-a-kind colorway. I've had it for a few years. It is so beautiful and soft. Her fingering weight yarn is an 85/15 superwash merino nylon. It is super, super soft. This colorway is absolutely beautiful. It's a cream base with little pops of orange and blue and brown, and it just reminds me of a cozy winter, being snowed in. And I'm holding a double, and this is where we're at so far. Again, this is knit bottom up, and so I'm about halfway through the body section. And I really like how the fabric is turning out. It's going to be so soft and cozy. I just love how it's knitting up, and it is so soft on my hands. I can only imagine that it's going to be so nice and soft and snuggly to cuddle up with a good book under the flannel covers. It's going to be so nice. Okay, I think that's all the works in progress I'm going to go over today. I'm going to very quickly go through the Eats and Reads section. The only thing I can think of off the top of my head that I just really enjoyed recently was a fried egg on top of homemade focaccia bread. It was so good. I love sweet, salty, and spicy all together, and so I also had like a chili crisp oil on top. Hopefully there's a picture here on the screen that you can see, but I had made this focaccia bread with like those really flavorful black grapes on top, and then caramelized red onions, and I can't remember what else I threw on there, but it was so good with the fried egg and the chili crisp. Perfect. I had it for lunch a couple of days in a row. It was so good. As far as reading goes, I have finished The Spellshop by Sarah Beth Durst. It was published July 2024, 384 pages. It is a standalone book, adult fantasy, cozy mystery, romance, and magic. Basically, there is this runaway librarian and her talking spider plant. There are a lot of magical creatures, a lot of food descriptors, and flora and fauna and gardening. It's based in a small town. I would say it's not very heavy on the plot, more on the vibes, but it's like the perfect little cozy read that I didn't have to think too hard about, and I enjoyed hearing what the spider plant had to say. And it was just kind of a fun, very colorful in its descriptions type of book that just made me feel kind of nice, and I really enjoyed it. So that cover is also stunning, and I totally judge a book by its cover. And so again, while there wasn't like a very heavy plot or a lot of action, it was just kind of a fun read, and sometimes I just need something a little light, and I enjoyed it. So that was The Spellshop by Sarah Beth Durst. A book I recently picked up from the library, but I haven't had a chance to read much of it yet. I think I'm like maybe 20 or so pages in, is Somewhere Beyond the Sea. And that is the sequel to The House in the Cerulean Sea. And I love it so far. I loved the first book. And this is by TJ Klune. It was published in 2024, but I don't have a month on that. And the number of pages is 405 pages, and the cover on this one is also absolutely beautiful. If I get a chance to, I will talk about it probably in an episode in January, but again, I just started it and I loved the first book. The third book that I picked up is an anthology. Absolutely gorgeous cover once again. I really like anthologies because I can just like stop at some point and go to bed. Whereas I feel like with some more action-packed books, even if there are chapters, I usually want to read the next chapter because I'm left on some sort of cliffhanger. But with an anthology, each story is like wrapped up within a few pages, and that can be really nice for me to sleep. This anthology is a collection of South Asian folklore and legends and reimaginings of old stories that have a more modern twist to it. And I just started this one, so I'm maybe 20% of the way through, but I am really enjoying this collection, and I feel like it gives representation to some voices that aren't given enough space, and it also allows more people to see themselves in print, in stories, in like in a greater community that's not maybe just their own community, so that other people are also reading these stories and being able to understand where some people are coming from, or just understanding culture and knowing another way of looking at things, another way of viewing the world, and different foods and different ways people dress. And there's just so much nuance in telling a story that I just feel like it's really important to have those voices heard. This anthology is classified as fantasy and science fiction. I believe it's classified as young adult. This book was published in 2003 and it is 338 pages. So that is Magic Has No Borders. We are down to the food for thought. Just a very quick one. I want to know if you care to share what your favorite time of the year is. For me, it is that time between Christmas and New Year's. I feel like it's a big sigh. Like we made it. We made it through Christmas and now we can clean up and prepare for the new year, and it's usually quieter. The kids are still on break, but you don't feel like that rush, or I don't feel like that rush towards Christmas or trying to get everything ready. And so I just feel like you can kind of let those shoulders drop a little, breathe a little bit, maybe sit around in pajamas and play games and just relax a little bit. And I think that's my favorite time of year, is that gap, or that time, that space in between Christmas and New Year's. How about you? Do you have a favorite time of the year? Some people don't like that time of year at all, and that's totally fine with me. You can like and not like the same things or different things than I do, and that's very much okay. So do you have a favorite time of year? Is it summer break? Is it a special holiday? Is it a birthday? Yeah, I'd love to know if you would like to share. That is everything I wanted to share with you today. I hope you are doing well wherever in the world that you are and taking some time to take care of yourself. Maybe it's 15 minutes here or there. Maybe it's 10 seconds, because sometimes I feel like that's all I got is 10 seconds. And so maybe it's just closing my eyes, counting to 10 before I start whatever the next task is for the day. With that, cheers to being creative. I hope you're doing well taking care of yourselves, your loved ones, and your neighbors, and I will talk to you next time. Bye.